Good. Listen, man, this is a talk show. Got time for all this dadgum music. 22 seconds of wasting time. Up in here. Welcome to the David Anderson Radio Movement. I am David Anderson. What up? Hope all is well. Hope you're feeling good about yourself. I'm feeling great. I want you to feel great. Happy holidays. Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Hanukkah. L'chaim. All that good stuff. Hope you're enjoying yourself. And let me tell you something. I feel so good. I feel so blessed. You have absolutely no idea what kind of year I've had. It has been a transformative year, to say the least. And this is the last podcast I'm doing this year, and I promise you, in 2014, I'm going to be very, very consistent. Every single Tuesday, you will get a podcast from me. Even if I got to record it ahead of time and then post it up, whatever the case, every Tuesday, that's my pledge. That's my promise. Second thing I'm going to let you know, coming back strong with the new YouTube videos. So get ready for that. So you can comment, rate, and subscribe. A lot of people have been asking me, what's up with the YouTube videos? How come I haven't done any in a while? And quite frankly, I've just been extremely busy. I have been very, very busy. I've been working on a lot of different things, you know, getting myself together and trying to make sure that I give you guys the best possible content that I can give you. I feel like whatever makes sense for you is what you should be doing. Point blank and period. And I need you to know that just because things don't go your way, don't mean that things will not improve. So many times we get caught up in nonsense that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Why am I talking like James Earl Jones? I don't know. This is it. Now, seriously, I really want you to get to a point where you stop taking permanent solutions for temporary circumstances. For those of you who've been following me for a while, you know that I was homeless. You know that I slept in my Jeep. You knew that I washed my clothes every Sunday after working in a call center all week and then going back to sleep in my Jeep just to get money to bring myself back to Philadelphia from leaving Texas. You know that I survived, horrible relationships, that I have dealt with a lot of issues, both professionally and personally. Some of the things that I've gone through, I've had to learn some very, very hard lessons. And one of the things that I have come to realize above all else is most people do not know what it is to be sure of who they are in themselves. Meaning that when most people run across someone who knows what they want, knows how to get it, is not afraid to express themselves, they don't know how to take that. Because this is what society teaches you to do. Society teaches you to be nice and quiet and docile and don't ruffle any feathers, don't burn any bridges. And I'm like, okay, let me get this straight. Everybody likes breakfast. I'll never forget in 1989, my graduation from elementary school, 6th grade graduation from elementary school, was on the same day that Batman came out. And I remember going to see Batman, and I wasn't excited about Batman as much as I was excited about the Joker. The Joker for me is like my favorite comic book villain. And Jack Nicholson, to this day, owns a piece of Batman. Ill. But I'm not here to talk about the business practices. I'm here to talk about this one scene. And Jack Nicholson, as the Joker says, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. There is something wrong with the person who has zero enemies. Now, there are people I know who most people won't say a word bad about them because they're that loved. But trust me, I know those people have enemies. There's a guy, one of my radio mentors who just passed away. His name was Jerry Bolding. And Jerry Bolding was the kind of guy who used to tell me all the time. He'd say, Taz, because he called me Taz, as most people still do. He'd say, Taz, stick to your principles. Don't let anybody whore you out, because once they whore you out, you'll never be able to breathe. You'll never be happy with yourself. And he was right. I don't do this thing where I have to dance. Now, sometimes you have to compromise, but that doesn't mean that you have to dance. I mean, I remember being in instances where people were trying to exploit black women. Now, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a black man. And I came from a black woman. I have a wife. I have a daughter. They are all black women. And it was a situation where they wanted to do a contest focusing on black women's behinds. And I was outraged. Did I really want to go across the table and smack them? Yes. Did I do that? No. I showed restraint. But I said, listen, you're going to alienate black people when you do this, especially black women, which is the majority of your fan base. I was working at a rap station at the time. It's the majority of fan base. Black women between the ages of 18 and 34. You don't want to ruin the fan base, the people who are actually buying. That's your consumer base. That's how you get advertisers. So I said, instead of that, why don't you do a contest that involves sexy single moms? Because that way you still get the element of having a photo contest. You still get applause, but you won't get any of the backlash. And while I did get my way on that, the argument was, well, we got so many hits. And see, that's the problem. We live in this world star, oversexed, exploitative culture. And people think that because someone is viewing this, that means that they enjoy it. I.e. Basketball Wives, i.e. Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta, New York. God only knows where else they're going to put that show. I hear they're doing one in Houston. All of these things. The trash you hear on the radio. I remember being in Fayetteville, North Carolina, not too long after I got out of school, and I knew it was the beginning of the end, and people looked at me like I was crazy. Across my desk came a video. Not a video, a CD. And in these days, MP3s weren't sent about like they are now. You know, you click a button, you email it, no big whoop. Dial-up was still the prevalent usage of the internet. So you used to get CDs all the time. It went from reels to CDs and now MP3s. So what happened was I saw a CD single that had a clean version, a dirty version, a squeaky clean version, and an instrumental. The name of the song was Shake Your Ass by Mystical featuring Pharrell. You gotta remember that song. Shake your ass, watch yourself. It was the jam. But at that point in history, ass was not a word you said on the radio. But the culture was beginning to shift because those in power began to dictate the culture. See, this is how it works. It's not the artist dictating the culture. It is the people behind the artist, the people with the means of production, the people who are running the show, who are pushing the culture forward or dragging it down. And I remember, I was like, wow, they're going to start saying ass on the radio. I used to say, daggone, by the time I'm 30, they're going to be saying bitch. And by the time I'm 40, they're going to be saying F. And you know what F is. It's duck with F in front of it. I'm trying to watch my mouth. I am a minister, but, you know, sometimes you need a little illustration. And I can't believe how much society is run or controlling people who are supposed to be so smart, who are supposed to be the best and the brightest. This is the richest country in the world, and we have some of the dumbest people I have ever experienced. And that's not me being messy, that's me being real. Allow me to examine this just a little bit further. I want to start off by really talking about consumerism, okay? Everybody who lives and breathes on this planet, especially if you're in an industrialized nation, that means China, the United States, Canada, places where people actually go and consume products. They are consumers. All of us are consumers to a certain extent. However, there is what's called a consumer need versus a consumer want. And what I see happening is there's a whole lot more wants being shoved down our throats as needs. Allow me to break this down just a little bit further. When I see people getting into the business of standing in line to buy a sneaker from a basketball player who has not played basketball in my daughter's lifetime. My daughter's 14 years old. She has never once seen Michael Jordan play a game. Yet and still, kids and grown people are standing in line for Jordans. Now, I get it. There are certain things that you want, supply and demand. I understand that. But you do know that there's this place called the internet where you can order these things online. But see, it's not about getting the sneaker. The sneaker's just part of it. It's about saying that you were in line, saying that you got the first one, because it's the one thing that you think you can show that shows you how good you look or how fly you are or how much money you have. Most people I know who have Jordans are broke. And the people I do know who have Jordans who are not broke, um, wear them to just, play ball, or they're going to something casual, they're going out, whatever, they're hanging out, they're chilling, they're not doing it just to one up people. I saw somebody the other day with a Louis Vuitton belt that was so big, and the buckle was so gaudy, I couldn't believe it. And then I look at how other people rock Louis Vuitton, and you don't even know it's Louis Vuitton because most people don't take the time to really do that. Don't be a label whore. There are certain pockets of America that are used as walking billboards, like a bunch of clowns, like Ronald McDonald with big floppy shoes walking around advertising. There's another group in America, a subset of said group, that goes out here and gets paid by people to advertise in their music for different brands. And sometimes they don't get paid at all. I'll never forget when I was in Nashville, I interviewed the Yin Yang Twins. And for those who don't know, I was one of the first people to play Whistle While You Twerk. This was way back in 2000, before Miley Cyrus had baby teeth, and I was a big fan. So when I finally met them, I asked them about Whistle While You Twerk, and Disney came and took a chunk of that song for obvious reasons. But then I started asking them, like, why would they promote Grey Goose when Grey Goose isn't cutting them a check? I thought that this was the dumbest use of a platform I had ever seen. But then again, how much could I expect from two guys who walk around going, ha, ha? Long story short, they got all up in their feelings. I went to commercial break, cussed them out, and kicked them out of my studio. Was it the most mature thing? No, but I wasn't 36 years old at the time. I was all of 25. So, I really didn't care who you were. I kicked Jermaine Dupri out of my studio. I'm not big on nonsense. I don't care who is bringing it. So, I don't understand why I turn on the news and I see people who look like me, getting up and, at the risk of sounding like Bill Cosby, acting like a bunch of park apes fighting over some Jordans. Michael Jordan has more money than his grandkids will be able to spend. None of that is going into your community, and you're fighting over a pair of sneakers that cost all of 35 cents to make, but cost $150 to $200 a pop. How dumb do you look? Seriously? Fighting over Jordans. Why? Why are you fighting over Jordans? It's utterly ridiculous for people to fighting over sneakers. I don't understand this. I don't. So, from what I understand, the latest one, because I don't really, my kid is up on sneakers. I'm not. But the Gamma Blue 11s have people fighting all over the place. From Stockton, California to my hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, people are fighting over sneakers. Alright, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. As a broadcast professional, as a person who has been on and off this airwave since I was 9 years old, the one thing that I've realized over time is that people are put in place to control what you consume, what you get in your ear. Because whether you believe it or not, that old adage, you are what you eat, is very true. You are what you consume. I'm sorry. If you consume garbage on a regular basis, you're going to have health issues. You're going to have weight issues. Trust me, I speak from experience. But if I can control what goes into you, I can control what comes out of you. See, if you control how a man thinks, you never have to be concerned with what they'll do. And that's what y'all miss. Michael Jordan don't care about you. Michael Jordan's getting his bread left and right. But you're so concerned with what somebody thinks of you. People who don't matter, who don't care about you, who wouldn't pee on you if you were on fire and all they had to do was pee on you to put you out. You're worried about what they think, how they view you, what they say about you. Here's what I know after being a person with a mouth like mine. People are going to talk, whether you want them to or not, whether you like it or not, whether you respect it or not. They're going to have something to say. But the industry knows that you're concerned with looking good, and you're concerned with what other people think of you. And so they portray an image that you want to be in order to get you to buy the product that you didn't even know you wanted. But because society tells you it's cool, you get it. And please don't fool yourself into thinking that it's not society. Because even if you never saw a commercial, let's just say you're Amish, and by the way, even Amish have reality shows now, you are influenced by your peer group. And if somebody in your peer group is influential, and normally they are because they're peers, stay with me for a second, then guess what happens? The talk begins. And then all of a sudden, you have a demand. And they make sure that they limit the supply just to cause a frenzy. And what happens with these fights, and don't think that some of these fights just so happen to happen. Some of them are real and some people are there to be agitators. I've seen it happen. Trust me. It's marketing 101. Because while I'm sitting up here talking about these Jordan flights, and while, stations as far south as Dallas and as far west as Portland, as far north as Maine, are all talking about the same thing, which is these sneakers, they're getting pub. They're getting publicity. And that's what they want. Good or bad. Either way, you're paying $170 and fighting over nonsense. How do you look? Like an idiot. And therein lies the problem. I need people to look deeper into what goes on, what it is that you're taking in, and why you're taking it in. As a person who came up, as the nerdy kid, as, the fat kid, as the kid who didn't always get the girl in the end, I can tell you that those things play on people's self-esteem. Studies have shown that people between the ages of 0 and 5 develop into the people that they're going to be. And most neural pathways are set very early on in life. Now, you can learn and you can unlearn things and you can grow and you can mature, but for the most part, you kind of are who you are. I've always been a loudmouth. I'm a loudmouth as a minister, just as I was as a shock jock, just as I was as a man. At the end of the day, it's who I am. You don't have to like me. And I'm okay with that. I will not lose a wink of sleep if you say I'm full of it. I won't lose an ounce of comfort in my own home because you don't like something I said. Your opinion is your opinion. I don't move based on what your expectations of me are. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is freeing. It does not mean that I'm better than you. It just means that at this particular point in time, I don't care. Because here's what my father told me. Every human being who has ever walked the face of this earth is born the same way, dumb, naked, and shivering. And when you die, you pretty much die the same way. The only difference is what you leave behind is your reputation. Now, if you're a good person, you don't have much to worry about. But if you're a bad person, you have a lot to worry about. But even then, you're dead and it doesn't matter. Just make sure that you don't bury me, that you make sure you cremate me, because I don't want worms running through my eye sockets while my bones rot. Now, while most of that doesn't pertain to you, but the one part that does, is people are going to talk no matter what, and everybody's created equal. It's what you do in between the rotting corpse and your first breath that makes the difference. So if you're living trying to keep up with people who don't care, I see people right now with luxury cars and still live in an apartment or live with their mama. How does that work? I don't get it. And don't get me wrong, I've had times where I've had to depend on family because I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. And when I tell you that being a minister is not as glamorous as being a radio personality, I ain't lying. If it wasn't for people making donations, if it wasn't for people buying books, if it wasn't for people supporting me, I don't know where I'd be half the time. But I'm blessed because it's people like you who listen to this show, who purchase my books, who make donations at davidempowerment.com, who keep me going. And so I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, I'm still not going to compromise who I am because I have to contend with the one individual on this planet whose opinion of me matters, and that's God. Everybody else is a distant second. Distant second. I care what my wife thinks. I care what my kids think. I care what my family thinks. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with me, bucko. And I got to deal with God. I don't care. And that's why you don't see me out here running around getting this or that. Now, I do like nice things. And I have myself a polo boots. And I do have a couple of pairs of Jordans. But I like things that are going to last. You've never seen me a day in your life stand in line like a park ape waiting for some sneakers to come out. Heck, I don't even like standing in line for movies, but people are conditioned. I'll give you an example. If you think I'm lying, do yourself a favor this holiday season. Go see a movie. Go check out The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Go check out Anchorman. Go see The Best Man Holiday if it's still in theaters. Go see American Hustle. I don't care what you see, but this is what I need you to do. I need you to go to the theater and watch. There are two things that you're going to see. First and foremost, you're going to see that there are people who are going to a kiosk, very few, and they're going to order their tickets from that kiosk. But most people will stand in a long line that has a velvet rope that goes in and out and swirls around, waiting to go to that counter to see that young man or that young woman to get 2 tickets to see whatever the heck the movie is. Even though you can go right up, swipe your card, get your tickets, walk right in, sit right down, get yourself some popcorn and keep pushing. And what's so funny to me, it's not that they don't know that the technology is there, it's just that they've been conditioned all their lives to stand in that line. When I was a radio personality in Jacksonville, North Carolina, shout out to Eastern North Carolina, by the way, the one thing that I always knew was that people in that part of the country hadn't really seen big, glamorous events. And so what I would do is I would create big, glamorous events. And I would use a club that people were used to going to. And then I would do something that most people would find counterintuitive. I would have everybody stand in line. And stand in line for a long time. Club would be empty. The only thing you would hear is the DJ playing. But the club would be empty. And I would go early on. This is a tip for some of you party promoters who still don't know how to do this right. I would go to the local colleges. I would go to some of the strip clubs. I would go to the mall and find the best looking women I could find. And I'd say, hey y'all, why don't you come to the spot? I'll give you a couple dollars. Your first few rounds are on me. Just come and post up. Stand in line for a while. And so what would happen is I had what people would call in the sports industry ringers. I'd have people who looked really good. I would find really good looking women because men will follow really good looking women anywhere. That's why if you go to any Fortune 500 company, the receptionist is always gorgeous. And if she's not, she's somebody's mama. But 9 times out of 10, she's somebody gorgeous because people follow beautiful people no matter what. And so there would be this line. And if you had to choose between the club that just had a packed parking lot and the club that had a long line of good-looking women, guess where you're going to go? And so once the line got to a certain length, I started letting my ringers in. And they'd come in, they'd sit down, they'd have some drinks, so on and so forth. And I would just literally find the people. Of course, there were other women there who would come that, I didn't pay or invite. And they'd be standing in line, and I would come out every 20 minutes or so. And I'd walk like I was the guys who own Studio 54. And I go, you, and you. Come on in. They pay their cover, move to the front of the line. And then the fellas would always do this. Hey, man, how come I can't get in? Hang on, good brother, I'm dealing with you. Don't you see us ladies out here? So now the ladies know I'm on their side. You see, the ones who weren't paid, because at this point, the ringers are pretty much all gone with the exception of a couple, just to keep it fancy. But by the time they got in there, it was party time. And it didn't matter. And that's how I made money. Because people follow the crowd. People follow beautiful people. People follow people who are being where they want to be, or they perceive where people want to be. And that is Consumerism 101, people. It is Consumerism 101. If you create the kind of energy where people feel like they can't miss out on something, because if people see a line wrapped around the building, they're going to want to know what's going on in there. Some people will even come up to the parking lot and be like, hey, what's happening? Why y'all standing in line? Man, it's banging in there. How you know? You ain't even been in. But you see a line. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. But see, everybody wants to follow. No one wants to lead. And those who want to lead are usually punished for leading. Think about it. Every great leader that you've ever known, for the most part, is dead or ostracized. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Tupac Shakur. Well, look what they did to Bill Clinton. I'm just saying. Leaders are never respected. Always the first follower. Jesse Jackson has made a mint off of Martin Luther King. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not popular. But it's true. But sometimes you got to say, look, I'm the leader. It is what it is. You know, and there's three kinds of people. Those who lead, those who follow, and those who get out the way. And too many people are those who follow. And so you have to know when you're being hustled. Most people do not know when they're being hustled. And that's the problem with this whole Jordan thing. Stop worrying about what people think. Start doing what you want to do. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk for a minute about Beyonce taking advantage of consumerism. Now, there are those who say, oh, well, Beyonce did it all on the internet, and that's banging. But, okay, I'm just going to need to, and this is not me hating, because I love what Beyonce's done. I am a person who appreciates Beyonce Knowles. I have met the woman on 2 separate occasions, and she's very, very lovely. Having said that, I will say this. If it were not for the radio, if it were not for the machine, if it were not for Matthew Knowles, if it were not for a lot of people at Columbia Records, if it wasn't for Dwayne Wiggins, and if it wasn't for Wyclef Jean, if it wasn't for Jay-Z, Beyonce Knowles would not be what Beyonce is. And that's a one-name icon at this point. A one-name icon does not need to advertise. At this point, she is the Mont Blanc. She is the Aston Martin. She is the creme de la creme of performers. She is the closest thing to Michael Jackson my generation is going to see. Point blank and period. And no, I'm not a huge Beyonce fan. I've always been more partial to Kelly Rowland, but that's just me. Having said that, let's not pretend that Beyonce did not have a huge machine that had been rocking for 16 years. I'm counting from when Destiny's Child came out in 98 on, pushing her brand. So she has a luxury. Pookie, Ray Ray, and Earl in the Basement, I'm sorry, if y'all drop an iTunes album, no one's going to buy it in droves, player. Let's just be a little bit more realistic. That woman's got almost 2 decades of hits. So now she can do things like that. And you got to applaud the effort. Number one, she didn't ask anybody's permission. That's what leaders do. They don't ask permission. They rather ask forgiveness than ask permission. Number two, she made everybody shut up. Too many of y'all are surrounded by talkers. Too many of y'all are surrounded by people who haven't done a damned thing, but somehow have so much control on the way that you see the world. How can you take directions from people who haven't done it yet? I don't understand that. When I set out to be a speaker, I surrounded myself with speakers. I went out and found Les Brown and got the man to mentor me. Why? Because I wanted to be the best. And for those I couldn't reach, I went and got the books. I went and bought their tapes. I went and watched them. That's what you do. When I decided to take ministry seriously because God put a calling on my heart, I went and sat down in front of ministers and watched. I went and consulted with people who had been pulling on me, knowing that God had already put a calling on my heart. Success and failure leave clues, but the one thing that they leave more than anything is a bunch of people talking. So if you got too many talkers in your clique and no one's contributing to the end game or the outcome, start weed whacking. On top of that, Beyonce said, okay, I want to put this record in Target. And Target said, no, because if you do, then people won't buy it because you've had it on the internet first. Okay, look. Again, I preface this with I'm not a huge Beyonce fan, but it's Beyonce. It does not take a rocket scientist. Beyonce can sell used toilet paper. She can. So for Target to say something as stupid as, well, we can't carry a Beyonce record that's already been out, that I was flabbergasted. I was really flabbergasted. I could not believe what I was hearing. I really couldn't. And so Beyonce sent her album, since Target didn't want it, Beyonce sent her album strategically to about 7,000 Starbucks. A great majority of those Starbucks are located where? Inside Target. Beyonce 1, Target 0. Then Beyonce went to Walmart, which is Target's lead competitor. And I knew a girl who worked at Target who told me that their corporate philosophy was Target is just like Walmart, although our crap isn't on the floors. So it's like Bloods and Crips with Target and Walmart. So Beyonce, knowing that, went to a Walmart and gave everybody in that Walmart 750 gift cards, plus copies of her album, and then struck a deal with them. Now, I need to put this in a grander perspective for you. Garth Brooks exclusively released his album at Walmart, and he was projected to be #1 until Beyonce said, nope, dropped that sucker on iTunes and destroyed the game. Somewhere right now, K. Michelle, Tamar Braxton, Rihanna, and a couple other women are probably all up in their feelings like, daggone it, this Beyonce did it again. Sometimes it is what it is. And sometimes you have to be willing to burn a bridge. So Beyonce burnt the bridge with Target because Target wouldn't accept her. But guess what? Walmart will. Some of y'all are so dumbstruck. Some of y'all are so destroyed by a no that you give up. You don't look at any other possible outcome. If I told you how much I've been through and how many people have told me no, I have a shoebox. It's somewhere in storage that has, no lie, about 200 letters from radio stations saying that they'll keep my quote-unquote package on file should something come available. Which is, yeah, we threw your package away, but we wanted to let you know that we got it, but you're not who we want. And what's funny is all of the major stations where I wanted to work, those that rejected me, I wound up working there. Or I wound up putting one of my products in that radio station. I love no. I eat no for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My wife, when I was in college, told me no. Several times. She's my wife now. I win. I'm not afraid of no. Sometimes no doesn't mean no. Sometimes no means not right now. When God tells you no, it doesn't mean that he's saying no permanently. He's saying no right now. And that's okay. But Beyonce didn't let a no stop her. But so many of y'all are paralyzed by no. Absolutely paralyzed by it. Don't know how to act. There are going to be people in this life who don't like you, who don't support you. And there's a bunch of people who act like they support you and you call them friends, but as soon as you start doing better, they got something to say. My mother should tell me this. Now, my mother is a very well-educated woman, Teacher of the Year finalist several times over, but she had a saying, and she said it this way purposefully. She said to me, David, no one likes you doing good until you start doing gooder than them. See, it's the ER that people hate. Bigger, stronger, faster, happier. People don't like to see you win. They love to see you fail. There are people who I thought were dear friends, people that I've spent money on, people that I've helped, people that I've given resources and time to, that all of a sudden, forgot my phone number. But as soon as they see something, as soon as they see that there's some kind of groundswell, as soon as they see 2 million hits on YouTube or 81,000 followers on Spreaker or whatever the case may be, here they come, talking about how proud of me they are. All right. I've already put you in the box. Like I said, I broke out a weed whacker a long time ago. So I'll be nice, but you'll never get close to me. Simply because you've already proven that you're untrustworthy. Everybody starts with 100%, and then I start deducting from there. That's how you have to operate. It's not that you're being negative. It's that you're being positive. You are innocent until proven guilty. You are an asset until you prove yourself unworthy. And sometimes when you smell BS, sometimes people got to start at 50. That means you already working from F, Jack. I'm watching you closely. We're not willing to do that. And so what winds up happening is we get stuck on a bunch of other stuff. Now, moving on from Beyonce into a Beyonce-related issue. I hear people talking about Beyonce when it comes to feminism and this, that, and the other. And people talk about how, her album is oversexed. And other people say it's great. Let me break this down for you. Beyonce is in her 30s. She is somebody's wife. She is somebody's mother. When you're a wife and mother, that requires sex. Because you can't have sex without a husband. Well, you could, but you know what I mean. And you can't have a baby without sex. So you're going to have to get sexual. So if this woman is expressing her sexuality on a record, that's her business, and she's grown enough to do so. But where was all this yap from Miley Cyrus? Miley Cyrus licked on a sledgehammer and rode a wrecking ball butt naked looking like a 13-year-old boy. Nobody said anything other than, oh, she's doing the most. Then y'all want to talk about misogyny and blame Robin Thicke and so on and so. Look, man, let me tell you something about Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus is marketing to you clucks because she knows, like I know, that people talk more about what they don't like than what they do like. That's why when I put up something positive, I barely get the kind of response I get when I put up something that's not so positive. That's human nature. It's unfortunate, but it's a fact of life. And so you ask yourself why there are so many discriminant images out here and why people want to talk about Beyonce's sexuality and this and that. She's a grown woman. She's allowed to be sexual. But here's my thing. We got to stop with all these isms. This racism, this Marxism, this sexism, this feminism, all these labels. At the end of the day, there's not a person on this planet who has not been discriminated against. There's not. Whether consciously or unconsciously, whether directly or indirectly, people are constantly discriminated against. And that includes white people. Although white people are the only group of people in this country with the power to oppress. That's a reality. When you can directly affect someone's ability to live, earn a living, where they live, and how they make their money, if they make their money, whether they stay free or go to jail, that is oppression. But some of y'all give people the means by which to oppress you. And that is your own stupidity. Now, let me switch gears for a second. Let's talk about Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never seen an episode of Duck Dynasty. It does not appeal to me. I don't care about Duck Dynasty. Phil Robertson said some very anti-gay things, and he also said some things about black people, neither of which I appreciate. And guess what? He's an American. He can say whatever he wants. The Klan can say whatever they want. I don't care. I really don't. I didn't like what Dog the Bounty Hunter said. And I'm going to be very honest with you. When Paula Deen said what she said, I wasn't shocked. That doesn't mean I support her. Because I don't. I got Paula Deen pots and pans sitting in my house that I bought at the end of 2011 that I don't use. That's how much I don't support Paula Deen. However, I also recognize that the reason that Paula Deen's story had any light of day coming from it was because a white woman sued her for discrimination against black people. I know. It's called irony, people. It's called irony. Also, real quick, black people, this is just an aside. I am so sick of y'all picking and choosing what y'all want to be angry about. I cannot wait to see how many of y'all get angry behind Jordan Davis when ain't none of y'all talking about Jordan Davis right now because it's not sexy. And for those of you who don't know who Jordan Davis is, let me break this down. Jordan Davis was a kid, right? And he was minding his business. And basically, what happened, he got killed. You know, in a similar fashion, um, then the whole, how can I put it? Um, in the fashion of a Trayvon Martin type of situation. You know, from what I recall, Jordan Davis was sitting in the car. Guy told him to turn his music down. You know, and he got offed. You know, and it's a sin and a shame that these things continue to happen in this country, but they continue to happen. There is a world out here where people can um, shoot a boy and then get off and then make over $110,000 on a painting that's mediocre at best. I don't I don't really understand how that happens. I don't understand how people do whatever they want and no one bats an eye. I don't understand how people can think that it is okay, especially in Florida, where these things just continue to happen. It's amazing how many things happen in Florida, you know. But I guarantee you, when this trial comes up, everybody's going to be talking about Justin for Jordan Davis, but you're not talking about it right now, which makes you a follower. Mark my words. I want you to mark this date down. December 24th, 2013, David Anderson said that y'all are going to be talking about Jordan Davis when that trial comes up, and I think it comes up in February. Y'all going to be talking about it because it's all over the news, which means that you're just following along. You're not doing it because you're outraged. You're not doing it because you care. You're doing it because it's popular. Y'all weren't talking about Trayvon Martin after it left the news cycle until the George Zimmerman trial happened. Then all of a sudden, everybody want to put their hoodies up and have a hoodie march and oh blah. Do y'all know Trayvon Martin's mama came out with a mixtape with some podunk rapper? I can't. I'm so sorry. This is why people don't take the sons and the daughters and the grandsons and granddaughters of the generation that birthed Martin Luther King and Malcolm X seriously. Martin Luther King was, what, 39 when he died? I'm 36, and I'm looking at y'all like, psh, really? Nothing moves you. Unless somebody tells you to be moved. Then all of a sudden you want to jump on the bandwagon or change your Avi or support a hashtag. How does that make sense? But Phil Robertson, Duck Dynasty, 95% of y'all don't watch Duck Dynasty? Who cares what this redneck says? Here's the thing. If you take Phil Robertson off of Duck Dynasty, heck, even if you take Duck Dynasty off of A&E, which will never, ever happen, because it's the only show on A&E that's really doing some damage. Force 48 is cool, but it's not doing the kind of numbers that Duck Dynasty is doing. It's not going anywhere. A&E did a knee-jerk reaction because they're scared of that gay backlash. They ain't scared of the black backlash. Before I did this podcast, I guarantee you 80% of you didn't even know Phil Robertson said anything derogatory against black people in that same GQ article. Now, there's another thing I need to clear up. And this one is kind of serious. You know, it's this mentality that people have. This mentality where people feel as though they can just talk about anything, do anything, say anything, and it's okay. It just doesn't work that way. But they do it because they can get away with it. They do it because they know that this stuff won't get a whiff. It won't register. People do what they allow. My wife says all the time, you have to teach people how to treat you. And that's true. You really do. You really have to teach people how to treat you. Because if you don't, they will walk all over you. And it's a sin and a shame, but It's a fact. It is a serious fact. You know, you can't be out here thinking that you can just do whatever. You have to have some kind of consistency about you. It gets to a point where uh, no one takes black people seriously. No one does. And that's why. You know? That's why Phil Robertson can say stuff talking about, happy black people, and, he doesn't he doesn't know any angry black people, and everybody he knows black is happy and blah 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 blah. You know. But the other thing I want to talk to you about is this mentality of, okay, homosexuality is a sin, as if it's the only sin. Let me tell you something. There aren't, contrary to public opinion and prior belief, there are not different levels of hell. There aren't. Dante's Inferno is not part of the Bible, so let's cut the jokes here. If you lie, you're going to hell. And let's just deal with Leviticus, where all the homosexuality talk comes from. And this is not me saying that homosexuality is right or wrong. That's not for me to judge. That's what God does. But I will say this. The same part of the Bible that tells you, a man is not supposed to lay with another man also says that you're not supposed to eat pig. It says that you're not supposed to shave, that you're not supposed to be seen in public without your hair being covered, that you're not supposed to get an edge up when you get your hair cut. And everybody I know loves bacon, gets a good shape up, and some women will be damned if they walk out of the house with a hat on. So, who hasn't sinned? And also, Jesus never really spoke on homosexuality. But he did say, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Then he said, go and sin no more. And so, Phil Robertson can have all the beliefs he wants. I really don't care about what Phil Robertson believes. All I know is that homosexuality is not the worst sin in the Bible, because you can say the sky is green and you're still going to the same hell. A lie is a lie. A sin is a sin. So please stop persecuting one group of people because of who they choose to love. Real rap. Also, man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Real quickly, people wanted me to talk about Obamacare. I'm going to say this. I think it's great that there are people who are going to be covered under Obamacare. I felt like it was kind of rushed. But here is what really ticks me off about Obamacare. The racism that goes into Obamacare bothers me. And here's what I mean. Obamacare is designed so that people who could not afford to get health care could actually get health care. And it's on a sliding scale. If you make $11,000 or less, there's a certain amount of coverage you get. Or if there's 4 people in your house and you make $44,000, so it's about $11,000 a piece, stuff like that. I mean, it's real deep. You got to go to healthcare.gov on it. I have insurance outside of that. I haven't had a chance to really break down the site. I've been there a couple of times, but the bottom line is this Affordable Care Act is basically a ripoff of Romneycare, which was very successful in Massachusetts. It had all kinds of bugs. It didn't work out well at first, but after the first few months, it began to roll. And that was started by Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney was the Republican nominee for the presidential president of the United States when he ran against President Obama. And what wound up happening was everybody loved the idea. He worked on it bipartisan with Senator Ted Kennedy, and it worked out well for the people of Massachusetts. So if this idea came from Mitt Romney and was worked on with Ted Kennedy and worked out so well for Massachusetts, why is it that now, because Republicans were smart enough to put a label on it and call it Obamacare, that all of a sudden it's the worst idea since sliced bread? How? How? When it was working fine all the time. I don't get it. I really don't. But I do. And what it is y'all don't want this man to win for anything. And the other thing is, what I find so interesting is that for the first time, President Obama is getting some real treatment. And that's not to berate the president. I think the president is a very, very brilliant man. I've had the pleasure of meeting the president. He's a brilliant man. But Barack Obama, the president of these yet to be United States, is not a black man in a traditional sense. Here's what I mean. Every black man that I know who is quote unquote African American, and I can't stand that term for several reasons, but I digressed, is descended from slavery. He is not. He does not have the black experience. He's getting an overdose of it now, but he does not have the black experience. His wife, Michelle Obama, she came up from the South Side of Chicago. She's had the black experience. She is descended from slavery. And so because Barack Obama was raised by his loving white grandparents, and he grew up in Hawaii, and then he went to Harvard and became the first president of the Harvard Law Review who was black, you know, he has a very, in a lot of ways, unrealistic view of the world. Because the world isn't as cut and dry as we'd like to make it out to be. It really isn't. Unfortunately, sometimes it's black and white, and sometimes it's really shady gray. And so it's a different experience. And I think that because he went in there like Abraham Lincoln, he wanted to quote unquote reach across the aisle and begin to talk to people all over and get everybody's view and collaborate. And he kept giving up and giving this and getting rid of the public option and the Affordable Care Act, and all these things began to happen. And then he saw that there was no give from the right-wing conservatives. He couldn't believe himself. He really couldn't believe himself. And now we've got an Affordable Care Act that has some bugs that need to be worked out. But for the most part, it kind of is what it is. You know? If you need coverage, get it. Because if you don't, after 90 days, you're going to get fined, I believe, $95. Yes, there's a lot of little stuff in here that you need to read. So while you're busy fighting over Jordans, you might want to start cracking open a book, picking up a newspaper, or using that Google for something other than world star hip-hop fights. But what do I know? Listen, this has been the last podcast I'm doing in 2013. Y'all can always email me, david@davidempowerment.com. You can always get at me on Instagram or Twitter at RevGutCheck. That's RevGutCheck. Because I'm giving people gut checks. That's what it is, and this is one of them. And so I'm really excited about 2014. I'm really excited about the holidays. I hope all is well with you and your family, that you get to enjoy yourself, and that life is good to you. If there's anything that I can do, please let me know. Oh, real quickly, sponsorships. I want to let you know that this podcast is being brought to you by Spreaker. You can go to Spreaker.com and start your own podcast. If you want a premium package, you can enter the code TAZZ10, T-A-Z-Z, and the number 10, and get 10% off. Also, it's being brought to you by MI Digital Connect. If you need an app, apps start as low as $125, and in some cases, $39 a month. So you can go right now, midigital@yahoo.com, or dial 267-289-2608 and get your app cracking. Businesses, rappers, actors, speakers, authors, dog trainers. Get your app right now by going to midigital@yahoo.com. Send them an email or dial 267-289-2608. Until 2014, if God's willing, I'm going to be here. It's His will in my hands. I love y'all to death. Thank you so much. It's the David Anderson Radio Movement. Get ready. 2014 is going to be huge. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.